this is a sad time for us because when Redmond Deal's passing, he was such a constant presence here for 25 years to this month. It's been 25 years. That's a quarter of a century. And so I'm afraid I'm going to say Redmond or so. I mean, I'm just so, I'm so used to it.
I won't take offense.
Well,
Not at all.
and this is Jared
Amos.
who is Redmond's law partner and son-in-law, I believe. Okay, well, let's go ahead and we'll start with a moment of silence and just remember Redmond's family in your prayers. Thank you. Jody, if I call on you to lead the pledge. Okay, thank you.
And the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, review and adopt the agenda. Whenever you're ready, make a motion. Oh, we got how many things to add? Okay, on 6G, we're adding 6G, and that's going to be, I've already forgot this.
Oh, no, auditorium report.
Auditorium report, yeah, which you have a copy here. And we're going to add 7L, which is?
That's gonna be, a budget amendment, and, approval to allow the manager to enter into a contract with the Western Piedmont Council of Governments, for an attorney search.
All right. So if, whenever someone wants to make a motion, adding those two items.
the motion to accept the agenda, change that.
Okay, all in favor? Thank you. Okay, the approval of the minutes, the June 27th, 2022 regular meeting and closed session meeting, which those minutes are on your table. I believe everyone was here for both, so whenever you're ready, make a motion.
Ellis, the mobile home vote. The mobile home vote in the minutes, I voted against making the change. There were 4 and 1.
What page number is that on?
I think it's 3.
Anybody else is at home?
2, the bottom of 2, old business, consider approval of ZMA 2022-1.
Right, thank you.
Okay, make a motion with that change whenever you're ready.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, all in favor? Thank you. Are there any public comments? Nobody signed up? Okay, nobody signed up for public comments, okay. 6, old business, 6A, presentation by the North Carolina League of Municipalities concerning general liability insurance, recommendations for facility rentals, events, leases, and contracts. Amy Wisnett and Lisa They're here,
Sure. Would you like to stick them?
absolutely, just come right on up.
Come on up, Amy. While they're walking up, if you're watching your closed session minutes, please.
Mayor, council, thank you. We met with, your town manager and Alice a couple of weeks ago. I conducted a property liability policy review. Pretty typical, I do it all the time. We typically do this every couple of years for your size towns. Just walking through best practices, making sure there's no gaps in coverage and no duplications. A part of that conversation, we talked about renting out facilities. And we offered our standard recommendations, the best practices, to protect the town. And that was to anytime you rent out a facility, whether it's short-term or long-term, that you wanna make sure that the other party has insurance. Your liability coverage will protect you as the town and their involvement with any type of event and premise liability. But it does not extend to a third party. So we just wanna make sure that they have the coverage, because in the event that they have an event or have something on your property, something happens, someone gets hurt, everyone's gonna be named in a lawsuit. If they have coverage, they name you as additional insured, then they will protect your interests for their actions. And so that's just a standard recommendation that we've made for the 25 years I've been with the league. And Amy's in the risk control, safety, loss control, and we were just talking about.
Right, and as a follow-up to her meeting, I came out to assess some of the properties that Hildebran leases out or makes available for events, to make recommendations of what can be done to reduce the hazard exposures, just as part of being Hildebran's properties, such as the parking lot out here in front of the former town hall, that type of thing. Because that's where your exposures are as Hildebran.
So my confusion is, if the town has liability insurance and the renter has liability insurance, what is the town asking extra of the renters?
Nothing.
It was just proof of coverage, that they've got that coverage.
Providing a certificate of insurance showing that, yes, if something happens that's a result of the actions of the person using that property, that person has the liability coverage to
And
protect them.
the additional insured status, so the town is additional insured on that policy.
Okay, so like if there were an accident in the parking lot, the person renting the auditorium would not be responsible for that
Well,
action.
It depends on what caused the accident. And where if there was any liability on either party's
So
part.
just
If I just
stand-
fall down
okay.
in the parking lot,
So that standard liability
Yes.
insurance that the rental party is carrying would be sufficient?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That include like they rent a room for a birthday party or something like that, it includes that, they gotta have insurance.
So typically what we found, for personal use, like a birthday party or a wedding reception, if whoever's renting it has a homeowner's policy, it will extend to a rental, space. So as long as we collect that information, they don't write certificates in the personal insurance world. So as long as they have that suffices, that meets the requirement. The other option would be, as we mentioned, they have liability coverage, so they give you a certificate of insurance. The third option would be the TULIP program or that Gather Guard. Now that intent is really for a short-term event, just a couple hour event. It's not intended to go weeks on end.
And it can be like just for a one day event.
Yes,
And it's
a wedding
right.
reception.
yes.
And I don't think it's an issue with Hildebran, but if that's a wedding reception and I'm going to have beer and wine at my reception, they need to have the liquor liability, and they can get that through that short-term program.
One of the things that I did look into on my own was to call some of the local municipalities around and inquire about that, don't you?
They're all our town.
Yeah, they're all. Well, the thing that stuck with me was that they do, most of them do it based on the event. Right.
Yes.
So there are instances where they may not be required. It's just, but I don't know who decides that, who
But
makes.
typically, if it's a shelter in the park,
Mhm.
and you don't even really have a lease except maybe just sign up a time here because I'm gonna have my birthday party, that type of thing is first come, first served, we don't do it. But if it's
Right.
a larger event within an enclosed building, you need to start looking at liability issues.
Yeah, the park itself, like for a gazebo or something, that it's not exclusive right to the entire park, it's still open to the public, so they shouldn't have to write a liability policy for that. Yeah.
So I think one of the main things that a lot of people are concerned about is how this will affect the festival or the cruise ins.
Sure.
It shouldn't. I mean, we haven't changed anything. We were just looking at the policies, or Lisa was looking at the policies and just wanted to clarify that the sponsors of the cruise-in need to have their coverage also. If something happens, no offense, a lawyer's gonna cast a net and they're gonna pull in whoever they can. If I have an injury that's gonna be long-term medical care, there's a lot of money involved, and my family's gonna get a lawyer, and they will sue the Hildebran, and they will sue the sponsor of the cruise-in. We've got Hildebrand's back.
Right.
We wanna make sure that whoever is sponsoring that cruise-in has the coverage also, so that if something like that happens, they've got the defense coverage from their insurance.
And I mean, these are recommendations, these aren't
I
requirements.
understand.
And we've had some smaller towns that have not followed recommendations. I have one town that had a pageant of 5-year-olds at their auditorium, and they never required insurance from the pageant holder. In 5 years into the pageant, they had an 80-year-old grandmother step down, she lost her footing, and she fell, she hit her head and she died. And the trust came after the town and the pageant holder. The pageant holder had to pay out of pocket. We went through and investigated and found the town no liability for the injury. She just lost her footing. But we paid, it was $48,000 to just defend the town. The pageant holder had to pay that out of pocket for her own defense. And then she turned on the town at that point. It got pretty ugly.
And actually blamed the town and said if the town had told her they needed insurance, she would have gotten insurance, but nobody told her. So,
Yeah.
Can you give them that option
to get it or
to
not,
get it or not?
for that size of event, I would not even do it.
So what happens in that event when we do have to defend you and the other party doesn't have insurance to defend you? Then that experience goes against you. When we underwrite you, we look at your claims for the 5 prior years. So that means increased premiums for you. So you're paying higher premiums because of that third party.
You may have already answered this, but actually, all right, if an individual rents the gym, and I think don't we have it open on Sundays for individuals to rent it?
Yeah, that's one of the things we talked about specifically with you guys. If it's, again, if it's like a small enclosed event, let's say it is the 10 individuals who are renting it, right? And it's the same 10 individuals. What they, tell me if I'm wrong here, but what they've advised, in that situation, we put up signage, place your own risk. Take the liability off of us, explain to them, in the event of an accident, you're playing sports, that's likely, play at your own risk, but not necessarily require a policy at that point.
And those aren't your events, those are someone else's.
It's just a pickup game, but it's kind of understood that they go every Sunday and play, right? They're using the gym as a gym is intended to be used, just playing basketball in a public space. So that you've been notified, play at your own risk, there's an inherent hazard in exercising. So that they're on notice for that.
So we probably need that in a written form, I guess, if they want to play at your own risk, have them maybe sign something.
It's on the
say-
sign, if
It's
you
on-
should, or it
okay.
should be, I don't know
So
if
if
you
we have a
posted the
sign, we don't have to have any kind
Yeah,
of
you
sign.
can just sign up.
Yeah, I mean, even if they signed a waiver, I mean, they wouldn't stand up in court, so that doesn't really matter. I mean, if there's a defect in the gymnasium floor and somebody gets hurt, then you're going to be liable. That's different,
But now if the other guy elbows the other guy in the mouth,
right?
that's.
Right, that's the activity. Yeah. And
Everybody's looking at something.
So I was a little confused at what you said. Are you saying that if it's just the covered picnic area, you don't feel like we need to? But we have a depot that is a building and, you feel that we should for that?
It's not is it an open public space like a
No.
park? Okay,
Well,
I
it's
am,
in the
Well,
park,
it's
but
in
you
the
have to
but I'm
reserve that
specifically,
building.
like, the public just can't go in and out. Okay, so I'm having to reserve it, it's specific use, then that's you.
And birthday parties in the gym.
If you have on your rental application a homeowner section and they fill it out and they have a homeowner's policy, you should be fine.
But if they don't,
Then tulip.
so the only thing then that we really shouldn't, based on your recommendations, is the pavilion and then the two groups we have on Sundays that do pickup games.
Yeah, because you've got the signs, and they're not doing anything beyond playing basketball the way that gym is intended, right?
They're not an athletic association, no. You're fine.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.
6B, update by Talley and Smith Architects Incorporated concerning tower rebuild.
Hey, before we go,
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
so you need council to decide how they want us to move forward with this. Do you want us to put a policy together making all these requirements for our venues? Now, I will tell you, Tulip right now, it's $103 to do like a basic birthday party, wedding, indoor reception, party, stuff like that. So that's how much they would be responsible for purchasing in addition to our deposit rentals.
I think we need some kind of protection. I agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, events that are more than one day, of course, now that's gonna cost them more, obviously. But that as well.
I think so.
It's kind of odd we wait this many years without having anything like that happen. And yet, tomorrow.
Tomorrow it could happen.
Okay, we need a motion to vote.
Yeah, let's do to create a, delegate staff to create a policy.
Okay,
I'll make that motion.
okay, thank you. All right, all in favor? Okay, good. Now, is that all?
Yes.
All Tally?
Bob with Townsend Architecture. The stage we're at right now is we have a schematic design completed, and I didn't have a chance to overload in advance. Have they had a chance to see this in a small drawing of it? Okay, and basically what it proposes, in simple terms, is to go to the end of the current breezeway and locate a new tower. The design cues or the design features of the new tower will all be taken from the original tower, with the key difference being, right now, unless y'all change your mind on it, but having a, sort of a tower clock at the third level of the tower. Which, probably do the clock on the front and the back, so you have one facing the park, one facing the road. So you sort of make that statement in both directions. The tower itself, of course, is all new, but again, the features, the way it's faceted in terms of the walls, the type of cap on the roof will be based on the roof. It was on the other one, which was a sort of a concrete with a angled step type feature to it. It was kind of very, very unique. So we're trying to bring as much of that past history into the new tower as we can. And what the point now is if this level of design is satisfactory with the council and the town, then we would proceed with developing construction drawings showing actual details for foundation, footings, for some steel reinforcing, and some other things. The sort of side project that's involved at the same time is to do some repair work to the two-story walkway, breezeway, it connects from this building, it would connect from here to the other, to the new structure. And that way you would have that also. That provides you elevator access to 2 levels of the tower. And only 2 levels would really be public access. The clock would be in a attic room, for lack of a better way to describe it. You wouldn't let anybody just go up there. They'd have to be there for maintenance or service purposes for some reason. So it would be some repair work to it, but essentially what it looks like from the outside really should not change, other than maybe some guardrails just as part of the safety and protection feature. In terms of how the code and requirements have changed since that was originally done. All the same brick, and that's what they need to clean up, do some what's called pointing, correct some masonry issues, fix the floor and the roof of it. That way the whole thing would be up to date, current, and accessible. And the idea of making that connection, I think, from Logan or someone in the town is a big advantage is it does give you ADA accessibility to that second level because the elevator does open out there. And if we connect them with this building, that's a nice feature for some people, yes. And people think of ADA and accessibility typically as being a wheelchair, but that can be as simple as if you've broken your leg or you've had surgery, just not capable of navigating stairs. So it's a lot broader than just, oh, well, we've done this just to put somebody in a wheelchair. It actually goes a lot further than that in many ways.
Yeah, the only thing I was gonna ask you is, during our meetings, we talked about the existing brick that's out there. In what ways can it be used or incorporated in the tower? I think we talked about a facade wall on the inside, maybe as they're passing through. I don't know what the council's wishes are, but this would kind of be a good time to maybe decide on how you want to use that existing brick.
Yeah, I would be open to any ideas. And what we're thinking are some likely uses. Brick has got some different structural characteristics than what we would be doing new. So we don't want to incorporate it in a structural sense or as part of an exterior veneer. I don't think there'd be any trouble putting it on the inside part in the downstairs as part of a feature. And we really don't go very far with that, but there's been some talks about ways that might have a plaque or some memorial area or something. Those brick could also be used maybe as a paver type feature, especially if it's inside and out of the weather. I don't think weather's really going to hurt it, but structurally, we don't want to rely on it. But we could use it on the inside of the walls. And again, if y'all have an idea that you think is really appropriate, we'd like to try and incorporate that. But otherwise, that's part of what we would propose next, is where we think that brick can be brought in and reused. Some of it's apparently in the fire, horribly twisted and weird.
Yeah,
we
not
might have
all.
gotten rid of those, but then there's a lot that we can reuse. I mean, there's a lot out there.
There's somewhere between 15 and 20,000 bricks. 60 to 80% probably easily be used. In the capacities mentioned.
So they would be used on the inside because
That's what
they're
I'm
old,
thinking. And then,
and you have new brick on the outside. They may look old, but
yeah, there would be a match to what's already there. So
Okay.
something very similar. I mean, it's going to look newer just because it is in fact new. But the older brick, there's no reason we can't incorporate it and use it if it's done correctly. I wouldn't want to rely on it though on the exterior, and we don't want to use it as a structural brick, just for safety reasons in that sense. But I think it's going to be a nice feature, and it'd be a nice way to tie that old and new together going forward. And you already got it, and bought it, and paid for it, and said, no, and you can't argue with that.
I just had a couple things I want to ask. I was looking at your sketch on 821. It says that the tower lower floor is supposed to be public access, right? So there's no ADA access to this lower level, or is there a ramp somewhere to be built, or
If
what kind of
you,
access? I mean, if we got the elevator, I know, but
it's not real well noted, if you're looking at that sheet, 82-1, I mean, 82.1. If you look across the bottom, there's a title that says new lower floor plan. If you go above the R in the word floor, that's actually a ramp up now that's there now. Concrete that'll get you to the floor level of the breezeway.
Okay.
So it's not at the front of the actual new tower, but you have access by using that breezeway. And the breezeway would come down and get you into the middle of the tower. So yes, so you would have access there. And now we're gonna have to add, we're gonna do some things with some handrails and things.
Yeah.
But you would have that ability to do it on the first floor and the second floor.
And on the other thing, and I don't know if this involves the tower, but we're gonna be working on the park at the same time. Well, we're gonna run it currently. I don't know if we've gone too far at this point or not, but could we not roll in the tower as part of the park project and just have one company mobilize? You know, like one contractor can work both places and you don't have, two different contractors and two different. I'm just thinking, and it might delay the tower getting ready a little bit, but then you have a grand opening at the end for the park and the tower, you know. But that's just my thought. I think it would save some money as far as if we just have one company mobilize again, you know, and not have 2 or 3 different trades. Or whatever. You know, have one person, if we have an issue, we have one person get it.
I would, that is more a decision on y'all's side, as far as advising on that. There's usually more advantages than not in having one contractor on one site doing the work rather than having the two divided up. I don't really foresee a big problem if there's 2 separate contractors. There's always that possibility of something going wrong somewhere, and one says it's his fault, another one says no, it's your fault, and the town gets stuck in the middle trying to mediate something that maybe you
I
didn't
could
have
put the
to.
water line in because they're up here digging a trench or something up.
Yeah.
If you have one person that's coordinating it and planning it, and you got one person to get it to if there's an issue.
And that's the next other thing. You've got one single entity planning and coordinating and doing all of it. And again, it might delay getting this done a little bit, in terms of how quickly you're ready to do the work. But I would, if it was my project personally, I would lean toward trying to do it all together. I think that's probably a pretty good idea. I don't think it's critical that it be done that way, but
I'm thinking for efficiency, you know,
Yeah.
like we got one person looking over the whole thing, he could schedule his trades one to the other.
yeah, on our end, it would be whoever developing the part drawings and that sort of thing. It'd be no problem for us to coordinate with them, share our drawings and our information with them, put it together as part of the package when they hire a contractor. And they put it out to bid.
Again, it's just my thought and idea. I hadn't talked, I might have mentioned it to Linda, but, I hadn't had a chance to talk to anybody else. So that's just something I just thought about. We discussed it, or if that's something we want to look at doing, I don't know what we'll have to do, but if you don't want to do it, that's fine. But I just think it'd be better use of manpower and equipment and stuff. You know, have one bobcat out there instead for, you know.
We'll be glad to cooperate with the town, either decision to make. I don't have any reservations about it being done, as part of the bigger project.
What do we got saying? That's just an idea I
That's a
had.
good idea. Sounds logical. I'm a builder, but I like to say it.
Everybody,
So one person you go to, you don't have to go to 2 or 3 different people.
You got one person responsible for the project. You know, the project manager, you got an issue, if he's tore up something, you got that person talk to them. It's not gonna be he said, she said, they did it, they did it. It's gonna be one person we're gonna talk to. It's gonna be one person we're talking to. It's just a thought that I have.
Yeah, and the only thing I wanted to say on it in regards to the tower and the timeline, so you have a good understanding of kind of when things are taking place. So we're not under contract yet with an engineering company, but we're working towards that. The timeline that they've laid out is hopefully to be under contract with a contractor to do the work sometime next April-ish, next May. Start the work and hopefully finish the entire project sometime between next fall and the spring of 2024. So that's kind of the timeline you would be putting the tower on as a heads up. Trying to get under contract. I don't know how soon you would be able to, if you're trying to compare when you could start the tower versus if you lump it in with the greater project, but you'd be looking at sometime between fall of 23 and spring of 24.
Is that something we need to vote on?
At least to give advice to the architect, yes.
I think so. You need to make a motion?
Mhm.
I make a motion that we try to join the two projects, the tower and the park together, and have, town six work with, where engineers want to be, and just have one person responsible that we talk to. For town purposes.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, thank you.
So y'all are in the process of having that design team hired by the town.
Yes, the engineering company, we're trying to come up with a contract with West Consultants. But, and that was the other thing that the council had asked about is, could the architect and the engineering company work together? But I think you guys already work together on some other projects,
It is
right?
with this consultant, we have
Time
an
and team.
ongoing work relationship with them. Occasionally we work for them, numerous times they work for us. So it'd be no problem coordinating with them, that'd be very easy. And that was the one thing I was gonna mention, including tonight on that, was just that, whoever, I'm more willing to cooperate, but you wanna ask that of Wes or whoever.
Right, but you wanna make
Come to
sure
the board, make sure they're good with it too.
Well, as long as they still like you.
That's why they, if it's Wes, I think we're in good shape there, but
Okay.
if someone else, you definitely want, I
Right.
don't know that you want to force it on you. You want to present it to them and see, make sure they didn't have any objections.
Just don't do anything mean to them.
It may actually.
Can't promise that.
Yeah, if you make the project a little bit longer like that, it may make it easier to bring in some of these contractors, because at least a lot of them now just want bigger jobs, they don't lose time on small jobs, they want to take a bigger job first.
And the only other thing would be to decide, I don't necessarily think you have to decide tonight, especially if you're lumping this in, but maybe some direction on how they can use the brick. Is that something you'd rather discuss at another time or decide that now?
Give us some time to open up that.
I don't think that's an issue, is it?
No,
I should-
I'd really take some time and come back with some ideas to figure it out. And we'll be working on it from our side as well.
That's all I have.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, good still, see.
All right, 6C, consider approval of revised agreement with the Western Piedmont Council of Government for administrative assistance for Project Husky 2.
Yes, so I'll cover this really quickly. So you're on 6C.
Yes.
So this is basically 6C and 6D, I think, cover at the same time. They go hand in hand. So last August, council approved a building reuse grant from the North Carolina Department of Commerce for Synergy Labs. This was Synergy's second grant. They completed their first grant in about 15 months. However, that was Burke County's application. We did agree to co-sponsor it and pay for half of that grant, but it was submitted through Burke County. This time we have submitted it. So last August, you did approve a building reuse grant for $500,000. Synergy had planned $2.8 million to renovate about 20,000 square feet of the existing building. The company currently has 79 jobs, and with this building reuse grant through us, they plan to add 60 more. In the last year, they've had ongoing discussions regarding the total number of jobs required by the state. However, after discussions with the state, Synergy Lab, and us, we did come to an agreement on the number of 79 in terms of what their starting baseline number is before they add the 60. So it was originally submitted at 237. The state did agree to understand that that number needs to be brought down. So now we have a revised agreement. So what we have before you is a revised version of both 6C, a revised version of the contract between the town of Hildebran and Western Piedmont Council of Governments. And then the second one on 6D is the revised number between Synergy Labs and Town of Hildebran and the state. The same matching amount would apply, so it'd still be at 25,000. State would still be at 500,000. I believe they're looking at $8,333 per job. They would not pay that out until the jobs have been created and held for 6 months. That means they meet the state's requirement. We're not on the hook for anything. The COG won't disperse it until that point. The county still plans to match it at 12,500. So at this point, for 6C and 6D, we just need council to approve the new job numbers, the new payout times, essentially just dates and the new job creation.
I think do both those in one motion.
Probably want to do them separately just since it's two different contracts.
Okay.
I just figured I'd cover them like.
Okay.
So they're related.
Pleasure of the council.
So the first one is the revised agreement.
Yeah, the first one is the revised agreement with the COG, and then the second one is the revised agreement with the state for the building region.
I'll make a motion to accept the revised agreement with the COG.
All in favor? Thank you.
I'll make the motion for the state. Revised state.
Let's see, for D?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, all in favor? No, thank you. All right, 6E, consider approval of budget amendment for deputy service during cruise-ins. And I think what's happening is when the street is blocked off, people are flying around the detour. And I think if a deputy just parked his car out there, that would discourage speeding.
Just to be clear on it, you want a deputy to park 4 hours on the quarter mile strip of road?
Let me see, what did we propose?
Monitor traffic.
Yeah, control speed on 3rd Avenue Southeast.
Okay, so just the one street.
Mm-hmm. They can park there at the Eastburg Christian Ministries parking lot, I think.
Or any driveway of anybody on the street.
Yeah, like 5 houses on the street.
Yeah.
And the only thing that Captain Reynolds wanted me just to present also was, without showing partiality to any one person on the board, that it was all agreed upon before it was submitted to the county. That he didn't want to get in trouble doing something for one person and someone else in the town limits called and said, well, why can't we have a deputy park on our street also?
Mhm.
And he just wanted to make sure he was clear on that.
Okay. Well, I mean, like, you know, we talked about Wilson Road, and I know you went out there and set some to
Yes,
try to slow people down.
that was, well, it was stationary patrol on one street, yes. Wasn't 4 hours, but
Right.
it was 15 minutes, 20 minutes.
Okay.
But I just he wanted to make sure that both parties didn't cross the line or not cross the line, but another citizen would call in, well, you know, if they have a deputy sitting there, why can't we have a deputy sitting over here? With the manpower that we have, we don't have the manpower to do it.
Okay. What is the pleasure of the council?
So, let me just ask, listen, I may not understand right, but,
Okay.
we're talking about just parking out there for 4 hours in one spot and just having lights on, or just sitting there where people can see it, or is it something that he could, or drive up, you know, just be seen at the cruiser for 5 minutes?
Not at the cruise in on 3rd Avenue, across the road.
Yeah, top of the road, just
Well-
be seen there and then maybe go back over toward the car repair place.
Well,
Maybe just,
no,
I'll
just-
say one place.
Yeah. Just to the stop sign on Main Avenue East.
But, I mean, unless we want to just have, I mean, people spend 70% of their time, you know, whatever, in that one area, And they just, every once in a while, cruise it out, maybe 10 minutes out of the hour or something, just so other people can see them out there too, in case we got something else going on with in the area. But that, again, you know, it's just my first thought, so.
Anybody else have a comment? Okay, how does the council feel?
I'll make a motion to approve the budget amendment.
Okay, all in favor? All right, thank you. 6F, consider approval of town manager employee contract to reflect approved salary increase.
Yeah, so if you wanna turn to 6F, the only things in the contract that are changing is the amount to reflect the 5% raise the council approved in June. And then there's, the only other thing changing are the new dates from where you approved it. And then section 20, my address changing just because I've moved. So it would just be the 5% raise you've already approved, reflecting that in the contract, reflecting my new address and then the new dates.
I'll make a motion that we approve town manager employee contract to reflect for the salary increase.
Any other discussion? All in favor? All right, thank you. All right, and we've added 6G, the auditorium, and Mike handed out some drawings from the architect.
I talked to him for just a few minutes. He was going to have to leave today, but he got tied up on the project he's working on. Basically what this is his ideas, what he's talked to several council members at the show and things like that. He's got his ideals, what they want. And he's trying to fine tune. So if there's something you want to add to it, take away from it, change, something like that, you know, we can let it go ahead of time. But it covered everything from reducing the capacity to 299, because if we go to 300, we don't have to have a fire suppression system. The seats will be changed, of course. Changing the bathroom, the front lobby, that big huge bathroom up there, will be removed and split and moved to either side. You can see on the drawings on the last page, it's actually got, it's made the handicap bathroom smaller, but put it next to the existing bathroom. So that opens up that whole center section. Then he makes that the entrance into the auditorium. So you just have one center entrance as opposed to two side entrances, and just get two lines of seats as opposed to three. Still doing some research about the handicap access to the stage. He's got to make sure it meets ADA code. He talked like there may be a possibility we have to do a point of rescue area in case we have a handicapped person and there's a fire. So to go down this and stuff like that, there has to be a place for them to go with the fire department to reach them quick. But I'm not sure if that'll be on stage or that'll be up front. That's something, you know, he can address when he gets a chance to come up here and talk to us. I think he's designed or planning on an area, you know, the people go behind during performances without being seen. Upgrading the light and sound system. Of course, the ADA stuff. Says parking is fine. Reducing the seat. He's wanting to do something to the block wall for the sound reverberation in there. I'm not sure, some kind of coating or something. It was supposed to help the sound, make it more sound, you know, the sound carry better throughout the facility. The better seating. And he didn't, I don't know what this audience reverberation time, different performances, that's something that he measures. So I guess there's some kind of standard somewhere that he's going by. That'd be a good question for him, but I don't understand it. So, and then if you look at the drawing, that's his first thought put on paper. Okay. If he wanted to make sure that this is what we want, the entire council, and then, you know, he'll get direction and going down the path with it. You know, look at it. I guess we can take notes if there's any changes that we'd like to see or add or take out and just get it to you.
Yeah, can we table this until we have a time to look over it?
I'm sorry, what?
Can we have time to look over this
Oh,
and
yeah,
table
I
it?
mean, you don't have to, you know,
Okay,
he just dropped this off today. I think he just got part of this today back. So he's, look at it, got the questions or something, talk to Logan, he can make note of it. We'll pass it on down to the architect then.
okay.
Let him consider it. Yeah, well, this is not something to do today, this is something for information, what's been done so far. Where his thought is on it.
Looks like you're gonna have more good leg room between the seats.
That must be a couple seats.
Had it, see.
I noticed he didn't put the dressing rooms behind the stage.
He hadn't finished all his drawings yet. I think he had in his writing that it would include some kind of area back here.
Okay.
It's got like space to be rearranged.
Rearranged, that's what I was
Space to be rearranged, things like that. So he's got some kind of plan in mind. And, you know, we was talking about the lift over there at the stage. He just needs to make sure by ADA standards. That's what it's fishing. Might have to have a ramp. You know, it depends on how many people. He's working on that stuff right now. I know it's looking things to windows too, but it's called cowl windows, which is something we use in a lot of auditoriums and sport complexes. So, he's put a lot of thought and work into it. He just wants to make sure he's going where we want to go.
Okay. So that's the consensus to table it.
Yes,
Okay.
postpone, postpone.
All right, so now we can move on to 7, new business, 7A. Consider approval of contract with HHDA for HHDA to oversee the cruisings. Y'all had time to look over the contract, Johnny?
Well, when we met before the meeting started, Amy and Lisa, the mayor and the manager satisfied what few concerns I had.
Okay.
But we won't have an opportunity to meet for our board to vote. So we wouldn't want to sign something right away till we've had a chance to discuss it and our whole board vote on it. But my concerns were addressed well.
Do we need a motion to postpone that until HHDA's board has had a
Well, I
chance?
guess the consensus.
Yeah, you could table it the same way you just did the.
Is that all right with everyone?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. 7B, consider approval of resolution for lease agreement with the Enola Group Incorporated. And that's the Buster Bus, so out there. in the parking lot.
Can you tell us a little bit more what that's about? I'm not real familiar with the Enola Group.
I can give you a very brief overview of the Enola Group, but yeah, the Buster Bus, from what I understand, is children 3 to 5. Is that? I believe it's 3 to 5 to provide educational opportunities. Preschool. Providing educational opportunities to kids that may not have them up until that age. So the reason why you have a lease agreement is when we did invite the representatives from the league about the insurance to come down, that did open up several areas of places where we needed to shore things up. The reason for the lease agreement is anyone using our town property, staying on our town property long term, even though we had a memorandum of understanding, their big push was, no, you need them just the same as walk and roll downstairs. You need them under a lease agreement that define the terms, time, when it expires. So we did put together one that would reflect all our other lease agreements in terms of when it comes up, so that they'll all expire at the same time next year. We can review it the same just as we do with all our other agreements. So it's not adding anything additional other than just, like, we voted to allow them here, this is just putting it right in form.
Make a motion to approve the resolution for lease agreement with the Noble Group.
All in favor? Thank you. 7C, consider approval of ordinance to amend the code ordinances concerning tobacco products used on town property.
Again, this is another update of just something that we ran into an issue at the farmer's market with someone who was, smoking. Now, again, with the farmer's market agreements, they actually have an agreement with each of the vendors on where they can and can't smoke. But when we went back and looked at our policy, we realized it was probably written sometime when Karen was in office. Yeah, it's probably not been touched since then, yes. So the only thing we're doing, if you want to turn to 7C, you can see what we've struck through. And what it did in section 2.8, it listed all of the properties that at the time were owned by the town. That's since changed. So what we're doing is we're just striking through the individual names and putting all property owned by the town. And then under B, 2.8B, instead of saying located at the Albert Parkhurst building, we would put up signs in the receptacles, and we've already got receptacles out there, so we'd need to purchase signs that show where people can and can't smoke. The only place that it was allowed previously under the policy was at the Parkhurst building, so we wouldn't change that. We would just put up signs and receptacles. Receptacles should already be there. And then it restricts them to within 10 feet of the receptacles, but again, that was already in there. So essentially what we're doing is we're just changing it from this property to any property owned by the town. That way, if we do purchase anything in the future, it's automatically incorporated. Instead of having to go in each time and say, well, we bought this property, so we change the ordinance. Alice, if I didn't cover that, please. I missed something.
Don't discriminate against smokers.
Well, again, where this stems from,
It's a choice.
Racist.
well, what it essentially stems from is when the state back in, and the reason I said Karen was in office is because I believe when the state passed the law, it was around 2009 or 10, maybe 2008, but states, they went ahead and wide swapped everyone into the law except for municipal governments and county governments. They said, you guys have to come up with that on your own. So this is just our policy that we came up with at that time and amended.
But you can put receptacles up, people smoke.
Yeah, the Parkhurst complex. Yeah.
All right. What's the pleasure?
Don't be racist.
Make a motion to approve the ordinance for the tobacco,
Okay, all in favor? All right, thank you. 7D, discussion and approval of festival committee recommendations.
Okay, so based on the several meetings that we've had, the festival committee, just as a background, the county did appoint a 5-member board with 1 alternate. We've currently been meeting the 4th Mondays of every month, so the same day as the council meeting, at 5:50 p.m. So staff was asked to have the committee come up with both a target date for the festival and a budget that we can move forward on. So what we've done, if you go to 7D, this is the memo, the review of recommendations, it's already changed, just as a heads up. So the committee recommended that the council allocate at least $15,000. We did meet today, and 2 things. 1, if you want to hire a festival coordinator, and then number 2, if you want to have fireworks at the event, that could drastically increase that number. So the committee asked if you're looking to have fireworks and you're looking to hire an event coordinator, we know for sure the council will hire the event coordinator. But if you want to do fireworks, that number was recommended to go from $15,000 to $25,000. Fireworks alone, I think HHTA told us were $6,000. So that would eat up 40% of your budget at 15. Just if you did that. Then if you hire a coordinator somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000, that's going to eat up somewhere between 60 and 80% of your budget. You are going to rely heavily on people donating or contributing, but you're still probably going to want, if you do fireworks and and hire someone, probably at least 20 fireworks, adds another 5, 6-ish. That would take you to 25. So that's one of the recommendations. So that one has changed. It's been up slightly. But then the other recommendation is council had asked about a fall festival based on what we just talked about with the tower and with the park, and the completion time being probably somewhere between late 2023 and early 2024. Their recommendation was to combine your grand opening of your park with your first festival and have it as one event. They felt like, to be safe with that, because even if you do get the construction done with your park in 2023, it's not gonna look like they're just coming off the grass, nothing's been sowed, it's still gonna look like a slightly fresh construction area. So their idea, plus you're gonna have things that are not really accessible outdoors, like your splash pad, playground equipment, those are not necessarily gonna be cold weather amenities. So when they discussed that, their idea was to move it until spring of 24. And that's what we talked about tonight. So we want to take those two recommendations to council and see how you feel.
All right, how does everybody feel?
Makes sense to me.
Someone done investigate. Sounds good to me.
All right. Somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make that motion.
All right, all in favor? Thank you.
In terms of the budget, where you go to 25 with fireworks, 20 without fireworks, but with irons, just a one-time event coordinator, just for clarification.
I'm with that coordinator.
And you do want to do.
I want fireworks. I don't want anything with that.
I think fireworks draw more people.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so 25,000 was the number you did with, okay.
7E, discussion of November craft show in gym. And, the concern there is about the park will be under construction.
Well, for this craft show, it would basically just be because the park site is the way it is. So when the insurance ladies came out, again, a lot of this agenda comes from us inviting them down. But so the other issue with this one was you still got that site, and you do have it roped off, you do have it fenced off in certain areas. But their concern was if you have any type of a construction site open where you've got people parking, you do open it up for risk. Now, again, you could do signs, like we're gonna do with the cruise-ins, do tarps, the caution cones. So there are things you can do to mitigate it, but you can't eliminate it unless you move the event out until that site's secured. So it is up to council on whether or not you wanted to have the craft show in November, but we did want to bring it to you with their concerns.
How's everybody feel about that?
I'm okay with delaying. I'm okay with delaying we're gonna crash that until we
2 weeks? You said 2 weeks?
delay it.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Seems like we're doing away with everything.
Are you making that a motion?
I make a motion to delay the November crash at the gym until which time we feel safe. With our insurance.
All right, all in favor? Opposed? Okay.
And again, we can't have it, and we will make sure that it's roped off, safe, fenced off where we can get it.
We've done canceled 2 years already.
Well, and you are doing the cruise-ins, so you technically already, if you want to talk, if you want to talk about adding risk exposure, it's already risk exposure that's present. So it's not that you're necessarily increasing it. Plus, you've got the school, UBYO has basketball tournaments, they're parking there, so it's doable.
Okay, 7A is the facilities report. That's in your packet. Seven G is the tax collector report.
I did want to say in June, we did finally get, I know Raymond talked about this, that $880 some dollars, finally got that in. So we got that applied to our delinquent taxes. $888.62.
Okay, good. All right, 7H, consider approval of 2021 tax settlements. And, let's see.
So the first one is from the Burke County Tax Collector, and there is a new one, Danny Eisenhower retired. The new one is John Bridges, so he presented his from, for the, 2022 year. Sorry, 2021 year. And then after his is mine, and that's the delinquent taxes from 2004 to 2017.
So do you need two motions?
Let's do, be safe.
I'll make a motion to accept the settlement.
All in favor? Thank you.
I make a motion for the tax collector to collect property taxes for 2022 and 2017 prior years.
All in favor? Thank you. Deputy report, that's in your packet.
Okay, I'll say that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Never mind, I see what y'all do. I got it.
Any questions about the deputy report?
Two months.
Oh, yeah. You want- I thought we really had a crime wave there. All right, and, if there's no questions there. 7K committee reports. Technical coordinating committee. Logan?
We meet on the 24th, 2 days from now. However, we did sit down and meet with, Avery Ritchie. She's currently serving in place of, Brian Horton, the transportation director. We did sit down and do some mapping on where they thought, whether it be new housing, new businesses, job creation might take place. So that was something we sat down and did, I think, 2 weeks ago. Again, it's mainly a guessing game except for synergy or any other known current projects that we have where we know job creation is gonna occur. But again, TCC meets Wednesday.
Transportation advisory committee.
July meeting was canceled. The next meeting is Wednesday.
Western Piedmont Council Government Policy Board Delegate.
My mom was in the hospital. I couldn't go. I don't know if Mike was able to attend or not. Okay.
Okay. Burke Economic Development.
BDI, so they had a presenter come in from the UNC School of Health, or the UNC Healthcare Division, I'm used to saying School of Government. So they had a presentation on that, the jobs, the hospital bed numbers, an update on COVID. In terms of anything BDI related, they will bring no updates.
Okay. Recreation and Tourism. Water Resource Committee. VEDIC. Did I say that right?
You said it right.
Dang, I used to say it VDEC or something.
You got it right. Beck met on July the 21st at the Community House in Morganton. Kerry presented a PowerPoint reviewing the past year. Beck made 21 loans totaling $739,500. The total loans since conception to date was 158, with $7,421,083.31. So that was pretty good. Then the only loss they had, loans not being paid back, was $126,000, which is around less than 2%. To date, 39 loans have been paid off. Of the 158 loans, 69 loans were made to minorities. These loans created 819 new jobs. During COVID, Vedic made 41 loan referrals, helping these businesses to stay open. The banks don't do this, but Vedic does. The next meeting will be on September the 22nd, and will be Zoom because COVID numbers are going up.
Burke County Library Board of Trustees, we did meet since our last council meeting. There's really nothing much new. They did, July was the first month they stopped the fees and fines. So that's now, the library doesn't charge those. So at the Morganton Library, now they're gonna cut all the bushes down to keep the homeless people from sleeping and doing stuff that decorum does not allow me to do. So, okay, that's really all I had on that one. Okay, Comprehensive Master Plan Steering Committee.
I left my notes at home, but I'll try to remember part of it, maybe we're getting it through. We've talked about what we would like to see the town used for. We want to gear toward the older population, the younger population, different activities. We talked about the possibility of connecting up to the river walk. We looked at the zone of the town and looked to see if there were some areas we would like to see changed, like from heavy residential to light, light residential or.
Yeah, in terms of, high density, low density residential,
Low density.
seeing more high density.
I mean, the rest of it, I've got the rest of it.
Oh, no, so, well, one of the things, so they presented the zoning map that you have up there now, and then they presented a map of current uses, just to kind of show the contrast of what you've got planned for versus what you currently have. And then they wanted to know things like, do you want to see more highway business? Do you want to see more manufacturing? Do you want to see, in terms of housing, do you want to see something targeted towards seniors? We had a couple people on the board who wanted to see some senior development. They also had a couple people on the board who wanted to see more high density residential. That was mainly stemming from the population drop that we seen in the last census. Plus that was combined with the county wanting to see a 2% growth rate in terms of population year over year to maintain the current economic conditions of Burke County. In terms of specific areas, I think they also mentioned any mobile home parks where we want those, not necessarily in the town center district. And if you do allow them at any point, like our current overlay does in certain spots, they would want to see it well maintained if you do allow it. Talked about both, so not only the Burke River Trail, but there's also a trail coming to the south of Hildebran, the Wilderness Gateway Trail. The current talks on it are trying to connect, number one, the Burke River Trail and this, the City of Hickory's Trail to make that connection. That would most likely take place somewhere in Longview or in Burke County. That would be outside of Hildebran's purview, but that was still a discussion. However, using Hildebran as your main connection from the Burke River Trail to the Wilderness Gateway Trail on the south. So those were the main discussions.
Festival Committee, we've pretty much covered all that. 25,000 with fireworks, spring of 2024. That's pretty much.
There is a current theme that they want to go with of arts and culture. I don't know if council has any opinions on that, but that's been the driving force. Also, they did want to, the other thing that's been brought up is hiring a festival coordinator before the end of the year, getting someone under contract to do that. So just for my purposes, we did leave it at hiring someone just for this one event. I just want to make sure that's where we stand.
Yes.
And then the other thing, in terms of hiring them, go ahead and hire them a year and a half out, even if you know that, but giving it plenty of time to get planned, to get vendors involved. There is a current gentleman by the name of Eddie Marlowe who I would like to look at. He currently does the Longview festivals, And he is evidently very successful in that. He's good at getting vendors, donations. I think even if you do pay him, he would probably make your money up on what he can get donated pretty easily. So if that's not an objection to council, now that we have a budget, I'd like to maybe sit down and talk with him, give him an overview and a timeline. That was a couple of the things he wanted, to see if he would be interested in hosting ours just like he does Longview's. He's a police sergeant, I believe, for Longview. Okay.
All right, 7L, budget amendment, and this is for our, attorney search.
Okay, so for the attorney search for Western Piedmont Council of Governments, they host that service to administer the search. They would be looking at a 3-month timeline, a 30-day notice for anyone interested. They would help us come up with questions. The one thing that they did want the council to do is appoint, so one, we would need to vote for the budget amendment of $4,000, but then number two is then to have council appoint 2 of you all to help with the interviews in terms of picking an attorney, and then take those 2 and staff and the council of governments recommendations to the council as a whole, and then go through a final interview process, if you're agreeable to that. We would need a vote for the budget amendment, and then we'd need a vote of which 2 council members want to sit in on the interview process.
I'll make a motion for the budget amendment.
All in favor? Thank you. And who wants to be on the? Okay. I'll volunteer too, unless somebody else just really wants it.
Time wise, this makes it hard on me.
I understand. Okay,
I'll leave it dark, get on with dark.
all right, so we need a motion on that?
Just to appoint the 2 of you.
Okay,
The search.
Y'all make that motion.
all in favor? Thank you. Other business? I'm gonna go ahead and bring this up. Rex's stage, it was damaged when the tower was tore down. If he'd just known the tower was coming down, I think he would have moved it. But there was damage and he did have to fix it, so he's presented a bill, so I don't know what the pleasure of the council is.
How about you?
1,500. The only thing that I had asked of him is if he had it fixed by someone else, was to present that bill instead of just one that he created, but just keep the peace. If council wants to pay the 1,500 one, I think that's fine, as long as as long as when we pay it, he says that that's the end of any, damages, there's nothing else lying out there. And as long as he's okay with that, the council's okay with that, staff will be okay with that.
Can't add anything else, just pay that and be done with it. Be in agreement with that?
I'd like to see the matter, I'd like to see it go ahead and reconciled and be done with.
Okay. All right,
Just, I don't got a problem with paying, like I said, as long as we don't add nothing else to it later.
okay, anybody wanna make a
I'll
motion?
make that motion.
Okay, all in favor? All right, thank you. Is there any other business?
Yes, could we get a budget amendment for 1,500 to pay that? That's the only other thing we would need. We could take it out of miscellaneous, you just may have to approve the budget amendment down the line.
Yeah, I'll make a motion for a budget amendment.
All right, all in favor? Thank you.
Logan, did you say the loitering signs for the lower parking lot would be yours pretty soon?
Yes, they're on order. It's like a million things. They're taking much longer than they should to get here. But yes, as soon as they get here, we're gonna install them.
It looks like Griffin has started locking that up again after the.
Are they putting the, road through there now? I know they've been setting the cones out, they hadn't been putting the road through.
They haven't been.
They hadn't been, I don't know if they started
Okay,
last week or so.
I did it Sunday night, cause
But
I did it Sunday night, there were people up there at midnight hanging out, so.
Like I say, I don't think they hadn't been putting it out. So like I said,
Ben called me, I think last week, or sent me an email, and I asked them at that point, or I reminded them that part of closing park duties now was to put that,
like I said, they hadn't been, I don't know, they may have changed since we,
What, a week
I
ago?
can't say.
Yeah, the next day, they had, like Tuesday, I think, they had.
If you notice they haven't, just send me an email or call and I'll remind them.
Now, did we address at all if we could spray that kudzu behind that's starting to creep into the yard at Christian Ministries?
The only issue with that is I think either half or 2/3 of the kudzu is actually on Food Lions property instead of the town's. So if you did want to completely get rid of it, you'd have to work with.
Well, we didn't talk about just completely getting rid of it, just keep it from encroaching farther than it is, just spray the perimeter.
Okay, yeah, no, that's, yeah.
Well, you
we
need
can
to get rid of the whole thing, I think. I don't see the food line would care if you got rid of kudzu, would they?
Kill anybody on that property.
I think-
It's on her property.
So, yeah, just full transparency, we have talked in depth with Steve about this. It's when we asked him to address it, it's not that he doesn't want to address it, it's just that it would be a price tag pretty steep. And then number two, he says it takes somewhere, and I've tried to get behind him to just make sure that we're all on the same page, but it looks like kudzu is something that takes several years to address. So it would be a financial commitment, not just the initial removal, but constant spraying over the next couple of years. Again, I think it's something he could do if you want me to get from him or from several companies who would look to get rid of it now and then keep it going over the next couple of years. I can do that if you want.
How about if we just start with keeping it from encroaching any farther than it is?
How do y'all feel about that? Okay,
Need to be cleaned up.
Yeah, just.
Absolutely need to be cleaned up.
all right, is that a motion?
Yeah,
I'll make that motion.
All right,
For you, a motion for all of it.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Yeah, just spray it all. I mean, we're gonna have to clean it. Needs to be ripped up. You rip it up, you don't have to worry about spraying it.
Yeah,
Nah,
Dig
right
it
in
up.
my backyard.
it comes back. That's the one issue is it does come back even if you.
You spray it, it'll come back for years. Climb up pine trees, everything else, you have to dig it out.
Yeah.
You have to dig it out
all right, what was the
there. Cause
motion?
I mean, if I, myself, you just throw money and talk money, flush it down the drain, cause you're not gonna kill it, spray it. It'll come right back.
Just keep it under control.
I mean, far as it coming over on the East Burke Ministries, anything that hangs over, they spray it, it's our property. Anything comes over the property line, you know, that's nobody for that.
My
I'm just saying,
motion,
if you wanna get rid of it, it needs to be dug up.
my motion was just to spray the perimeter.
Spray the parameter, okay, was that,
I'll make the motion, spray the parameter, and start with that.
Yes.
okay, all in favor? All right, thank you.
Now, the other thing is the bricks out here. I think maybe we ought to look at securing them a little more. They were walking off during the last cruise in.
Well, we talked about putting this fence all the way around.
Yeah, that's another thing that the insurance people, prior to the next cruise in, it'll be tarped off. And if we can get the fence around it, which I think we can, the fence will be put around it and you'll have caution cones. But again, the idea is to keep them out of there, but that'll be done prior to the next cruise in, without a doubt.
Thank you.
Is that all the other business?
The only other one we added, but I think we skipped over it, 7L to do, normally when you have someone like the town attorney pass, you would send flowers or something to the funeral home. One of the things that was thrown around was maybe doing like a $500 appropriation to the animal shelter in Redmond's name. Mr. Amos, if you have something better that you think would make him happier than the animal
Either
shelter?
certainly an animal related shelter or just even something for the town, because I know he enjoyed being here. So if it would be something to benefit the citizens, I think he would appreciate that as well. Certainly discretion of the board. We would appreciate anything you do to remember him, and thank you for having me as well tonight.
We appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. And the other thing that was floating around is he was a veteran of the war, so we had talked about doing veteran and educators monument at the park, maybe including him in that list.
Yeah, I'm all for that. Yeah, I agree with that.
This is a $500 appropriation to the animal shelter board. We can get a.
Sounds good, that's what Randall would like.
All right,
Y'all make that motion.
all in favor? Thank you. Is that everything? In the way of announcements, we don't really know about the services yet, do we?
We don't, they're in the planning phase. It will not be, this week, it may be the end of next week. It will be at First Baptist Church in Morganton. And I'll notify Logan once we have this made.
Okay.
You're certainly all welcome to it.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
And if there's anything I can do for the board in the interim during your search, please let me know. I'll be happy to help you when I can.
Okay. Well,
Thank
thank you for being willing to do all this at this time.
Absolutely.
Are there any other announcements?
I'll make that,
None, there's just one thing.
I'll make that motion.
All right, all in favor? Thank you. I'm surprised this was a quick meeting considering all we had on the agenda.
Thank you, Ben. Y'all have done a great job.
I know.
Do you have a second?
Yeah.
This is for. Yeah. I made a mistake, and you wasn't for me. The way they came out was, your cats were cats, you know, those cats in there with me. He said, "Are they alive?"
Well, I mean, yeah, we could look at that, just see very.
It's gonna be hard. Everybody calls it, well, sorry for loss, where's the property, a little space. But he did that, he said, no, look, he's telling me, come back in 10 years and I'll update your will. I mean, he never admitted it.
How much do you have?
I'm afraid I'm one of the.
I just say,
Ryan not off, spray it.
Yeah, right, yeah, you can go.
I'll give you
It's rock salt. That's right.
green with
Hey,
I
acetic acid will kill you.
He's a junior, so his dad must like him.
You don't want to do it around.
Like I said, you know, we are just that sort of
He puts out, they mix for fire.
I'll give
I'll have him back in.
Normally I'll be a little more speed on things like this, I just sort of grab the packet today and that's it. Okay. Was that another bad? That's all right. We done before.
Don't need.
If inflation keeps going up, I'll back with it.
I think that's the just don't walk the town on. Cut everything off, spray the board, the rest of it. Food lines will sit there and the people who ask, they ask long for them, they're gonna step up and do something. Well, whoever owns the building, I'll have food line owns the building.
But whoever wants to, if you don't want to hire people. Kills everything under, yeah. Well, I agree. And there, you want to. But you can get around.
Well, it's.
Oh, I know, it's a good, that's what I said, these is bush hogs, whatever. That's great.
Well, I think the people are mad because of that.
And I don't think.
We've been doing the
I don't
car
think
shows.
the
Well,
stuff
boo-hoo.
there.
We've been doing the car shows.
Bush hog cut.
I know what I'm saying,
No, they don't look.
that's what I'm saying, so they
But it'll keep coming back.
Now, we'll spend $1,000 for that.
And if you start spraying it, if you spray it 2 or 3 times, eventually.
So many
it's gonna
people
shoot out.
live in there. That's gonna ask.
Yeah, I've heard
Yeah.
that.
If we're gonna spend $1,000 on the quarter mile patrol, we should spend $1,000 on this.
Well, I mean, I'm all for it. I'm all for taking my bush hog and
Yeah.
put it clean.
Well, I was gonna say,
First time.
if you bush hog it.
And then spray it.
You got
You bush it, well, if you bush hog it, start spraying it. Once it's cut down and you got it open to where it's gonna go in, then put rock salt on what you kill it.
Yeah,
Rock
diesel
salt.
fuel,
Rock salt.
but EPA.
No, I put rocks on the stone.
Rock salt on anything.
Yeah, that's what's funny.
Get the fire department to come burn it.
He's working with our paper mill.
Yes.
And we had a pond up our red trap.
That's what I say.
They had a
I said,
pond
but
there,
you
but I
gotta,
had to deal with
you
it all the time.
gotta cut it. Just spray it, it's not gonna kill it. You cut it, then spray it, you gotta spray it several times, or spread rock salt out across something.
He said, what? I said, I'm gonna tell you something. Man,
But you know, it's still spray it.
I said, I know man, man messes them up.
I've been bush hogging,
Oh,
one cost a dime. I've done it too.
Oh, yeah.
Good Lord will take
Bush
care
hog,
of it.
bush hog, they spray it, spray it, you just start to feel like.
It's,
Or go to
there's
DOT,
no wrong.
DOT donated enough rock
You can't
salt
tell them nothing.
to the town, they
No.
had furnish
property
it.
that you
It's
saw.
pretty much right on.
It'll be
Yeah,
allowed
rock
to
salt
bring
would kill it.
it back in there.
Not according to
It's
the,
not a railroad.
you remember the,
Oh, this
you were
one.
here.
Yeah.
They sprayed
We do hire
They
that.
noticed to take them.
Yeah, before they go down and do a bunch of tree work and all this stuff, line work, they want to, they kill trees and all. They don't pick, grab, put things on.